Twister 1996 is about what happens when you try to leave your wife for a woman with shorter hair, and Twisters 2024 is about overcoming seemingly insurmountable grief following an earth-shattering tragedy. Also, helping the community.
We've got to help.
It's good that we came to help.
I don't know why the characters need to explicitly say it so much. It feels like the movie is afraid we'll think it's too problematic if the main characters aren't overtly community-oriented, but it's not like they aren't otherwise not helping out. To me, telling people what to do during a severe weather event multiple times, saving numerous lives, is a better example of helping the community than Daisy Edgar-Jones handing a picture frame to a stranger. I'm getting ahead of myself. I, like many of you, have been closely watching the Glenn Powell situation unfold. As Hollywood's coolest new dude, I have been drawn to much of his work, I'll admit it. I wanted to see Plural Twisters 2024 in theaters. And off the bat, I love how this standalone sequel coming out 30 years later wholeheartedly commits to just adding an S to the original title. In many universes, this is very funny to me. What's suggested in the trailer is that it's called Twisters because there's two of them.
We got twins! Twins!
But singular Twister, Twister 1996, also has a set of Twisters. Twister Sisters.
Okay, we got sisters.
Going from sisters to twins, just this idea that culturally we've progressed in such a way that the tornado is no longer being objectified. And even though I knew I didn't need the context of the first film to watch the second, and I already knew what a tornado was, I'm glad I sat down to watch Twister 1996 because it gave me a baseline of just what a tornado movie is, what tornado movies are capable of, what they can achieve, and perhaps most importantly, how it can't just be about storm chasing. There has to be some larger interpersonal conflict nested within the tornado-ridden landscape. And I realized it had to be this way because, how do I say, storm chasing is boring. I was watching and realizing that so much of the drama of Twister 1996 occurs when they're in the car waiting to get to the twister, and I was like, oh, they're just commuting. This isn't Mad Max. Storm chasing, also known as driving. You take away the upbeat music and playful coworker radio banter, and we're just driving to work. And no one wants to see that on the big screen. That's just local news. You may be surprised to hear me say that these tedious vehicle montages weren't the sole inspiration behind me thinking deeper about these films. No, the opening sequence truly and unironically knocked my socks off. Not to be some bitch who's like, the Twister really is a character of its own, but yeah, the Twister really is a character of its own. It ascending onto the house like the monster from Nope, hearing some of the craziest sound design, and I'm not a sound person. If you haven't seen it, they make the Twister growl.
Also, I do want to say you folks back to the west.
I was like, they should get an Oscar for this. And then I looked it up and they did. Go girl, go get that Oscar 30 years ago. One of the handful of times where I've hit bingo watching a movie, most recently in 2019 watching Sound of Metal, and they say they're driving through like Minnesota or something, and I was like, really? Because that field looks like Massachusetts to me. And then I looked it up and they filmed the movie in Massachusetts. It feels like hitting the lottery of nothing. I felt like that GeoGuessr guy on TikTok who knows the street lamps of every nation, except I am well-versed in blades of grass. I also think Twister was smart in the way Jaws is smart in that the monster we're facing is visually restrained in the first scene. We can face the horror of what's happening in other ways while also creating a subconscious anticipation of visuals to come later in the movie. Ladies, never let him see your Twister on the first date. That's all impressive, but it's also all flashback. We're gonna have to put a pin in it for now, because the plot of Twister 1996 is this. Bill, a former storm chaser turned weatherman, is going back to his old tornado team. Why, you ask? Because he wants a divorce. He wants a divorce from Connor Roy. He wants a divorce from Todd Field, writer-director of Tar. He wants a divorce from Plutarch Heavensby. Guys, this cast is crazy. Not to reduce PSH to his franchise role, but that's what I grew up knowing him for. It wasn't until my prefrontal cortex developed that I saw him as Hollywood first saw him. A misfit. a quirky sidekick, a weird guy in a fun shirt. And Bill wants a divorce from these guys? No, more specifically, he wants a divorce from his wife, Joe, the leader of this tornado team, despite them being a scientific force in the major weather event community to be reckoned with. There's technology, there's patents, there's history between the two of them. But Bill's forgotten all that. He's itching to get married to new thing, Melissa, who's joined him on the divorce paper journey. Well, forgotten all that until Bill reunites with his former team, Joe, the most recent iteration of a machine he helped develop. They hear of a tornado in the area. Perhaps you can sense where this is going. And Bill and Melissa get swept up into the antics of his previous career. Within the first 15 minutes, the film really tells us everything we need to know about the dynamics between these three. To speak plainly, Bill is the loser weatherman who has turned on a life of passion and risk for one of je ne sais quoi, a normie and basique. When they cross paths with his former rival, corrupt mayor of Hawkins, Carrie Elves? Carrie says he likes Bill's weather reports, which is clearly a loaded statement. He's insinuating that Bill's new line of work is the pond scum of the weather industry. Offense is taken, a fight almost breaks out. So that's Bill. Joe, on the other hand, is the cool, scientific, self-assured woman leading this ragtag group of storm chasers. A crew that doesn't behave not unlike NPCs for most of the movie.
This is 3 miles southeast. Let's see what she does. You're too close. It's not gonna work. Get out of there.
It's as if they're all tasked with the sole responsibility of dressing up the fact that this is a film about commuting to work. And then Melissa is your classic hysterical woman. She's a woman in a 90s film, what can I say? She almost gets crushed by this truck, and afterwards she's crying and screaming, and she needs Bill, which, dare I say, is an appropriate response to this near-death experience. But in the wake of Joe being so cool about things, it's as if the movie wants you to think that Melissa is the crazy one for behaving this way. Meanwhile, Joe's behaving like a psychopath. She just also almost died and is like, ugh, it was windy.
It was windy.
Melissa's well-intentioned, but she just doesn't fit into this world, emotionally or physically. When the twirling and whirling and twisting becomes too much, she decides to call it quits on this adventure and her relationship with Bill. But she doesn't say, I'm breaking up with you. Oh, no. She says, I can't compete with this. She can't compete with these giant air vortexes, and by extension, Joe. So she leaves, allowing Joe and Bill to face the final tornado boss unabashedly together, completing the mission they started all those years ago. Whoosh, 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 Twister 1996, see you later, bye. But can we get something else out of this story? Is it really just a relationship drama where the tornado is the prop? The Twister used just to give us heightened stakes in an otherwise familiar story. Why even have it a tornado at all? Why don't they face a giant freezing rain? I'm thinking of a film like Force Majeure, where an avalanche is used as the perfect analogy for a marriage suddenly crumbling to pieces. But the thing being that the avalanche we see doesn't cause any damage. Things seem scary for a moment, but we're just watching snow get moved around. Likewise, our main character is unable to find the courage in herself to create actual change in her relationship. Throughout the duration of the film, we see many pieces moving around. We see words exchanged, tears shed, conversations happening, but ultimately at the end of it all, the same marital structure remains, the same mountain underneath an inconsequential avalanche. A twister, by definition, is a tornado, which isn't helpful. A tornado, by definition, is a violently moving vortex of air whirling in a funnel-like shape. Of all the severe weather events, tornadoes, thunderstorms, hurricanes, drought, hail, and locusts, tornadoes are easily the most analogous to our whirling, similarly unpredictable human emotions that can also destroy the entire city if left unchecked. If you don't go to therapy, our tax dollars pay for it. Yeah, you too will rip up the sidewalk and blow through the municipal budget. I want everyone to know that I couldn't remember the word locusts, and so I googled biblical group of bugs. I think the behavior of a tornado is something the filmmakers thought about. I mean, take the first moment Bill and Joe have to themselves. The conversation starts unassumingly. Joe asking if Bill met Melissa at the weather station, and Bill is like, I don't want to fight. And Joe's like, I'm not fighting, I'm just talking. Like a tornado, a little piece picked up here, a little resentment picked up here, and then they're in a full-blown argument to the point where Bill runs them off the road and nearly kills them. And Joe, being the cool woman she is like, can you drive?
Can I drive?
No!
Then would you?
Girlie, where is your fight or flight? You were about to knowingly hit a stopped vehicle? We're getting the sense that things can easily spin out of control between the two of them. But the main takeaway from this conversation, in my opinion, is that Joe calls Melissa nice. Yeah. From our experience with Carrie Elves earlier, we can see how nice is a backhanded compliment in the storm-chasing world, even if Joe is trying to be sincere. Nice is reserved for the uninteresting. Nice sounds like going to bed at 8 o'clock for your weatherman's job in the morning. It's also revealed in this conversation that Melissa is a therapist, and I was trying to think of how this might be significant, but I think they were just trying to make her as unlikable as possible. It was the 90s. Nobody wanted to go to therapy yet. This conversation is like a tornado, but that's all simile, and I'm wondering if we can take it a step further. To metaphor. Around the midpoint of the film, the side characters are sharing a crazy Bill story with Melissa. How he was at one point like naked and drinking in front of a tornado. I don't know. PSH really sells it. You gotta hear him tell this story. Everyone's reminiscing and it's like, oh, they loved this version of Bill. Bill, on the other hand, asserts that that was evil Bill, a version of himself that he has since killed. But the thing is, you can't kill a tornado, and you can't fundamentally change who you truly are. You can't kill Bill, and Bill didn't kill the adrenaline junkie, risk-taking version of himself. No, he just abandoned the lifestyle that led to those choices so easily being made. Your natural inclinations and instincts will always find a way to the surface, no matter how much you try to suppress them. Wherever you go, there you are type beat. Wherever you weatherman, you still tornado. I mean, the whole movie is predicated on the fact that Bill came back to solely get his divorce papers signed, and look where we are now. Was he a storm chaser, or was he just chasing himself? Because he is a tornado. He's a whirlwind. He's got them wrapped up in this whole thing. That's a metaphor. But for Joe, the tornado represents something a little different. She's not trying to run away from who she is, but remember that scary opening sequence where we see that little girl lose her dad? Yeah, that was her. Tragic backstory alert. Her viscerally frightening and tragic backstory where we see the most devastating category of a tornado take her dad's life and rip through her home. Joe firsthand knows what it's like to be the statistical inevitability. You hope the tornado won't hit your house, but for some people, so long as they're around, they will. The breaking of the family structure by largely unknowable natural forces. You know what else is unpredictable and can tear through the home and break up your family structure? Divorce. A divorce will do that. When you add up Joe's fear of break in the family structure and Bill's inability to accept himself, the tornado that they're facing together at the end of the film, the one that they must conquer together, represents their marriage. The marriage itself. If Bill doesn't accept who he truly is, divorce. If Joe cannot move on from her past, divorce. If they cannot overcome this foe, divorce. When Bill and Joe are trying to overcome the twister, they are also trying to overcome their own inner turmoils that lead them to divorce. Then, at the end of the movie, the victory doesn't come when they destroy the tornado. We already know you can't do that. The victory comes when they deploy their technology, which allows them to know more about tornadoes. Knowledge is the goal. Knowledge is the thing that we seek. When things get scary and confusing, you can't run away from your problems. You can't and shouldn't run away from your soulmate because you're afraid of who you are. I'll say it. You have to face your marriage by going in to the center of a tornado. Then and only then will the heavens shine down on you and your life choices, and you can move forward with this new knowledge, this new truth, together. That's the only way to move forward. You have to get to the center, get to the mess of things before you can get out of it. And that's what Twisters is all about. Putting a marriage in the vortex. And then on top of all that, Bill, at the end of the movie, out of all things, decides to point out to her, look, that house wasn't destroyed. It's as if he's saying, look, we're one of the marriages who got through these challenges, namely me trying to leave you. But we did it. We got through this. Not all marriages are going to end in divorce. Not all houses are going to be destroyed by the tornado. And ours shouldn't either. We have deep roots. We fixed ourselves to deep pipes to survive this tornado, as if to say, look how deep our roots are. So yeah, does tornado equal divorce? Yeah, in a way. If you don't survive a tornado, you're getting divorced because you're dead. No, I get it. You may think I'm anticipating your criticism. You may think I'm reaching with these metaphors, analogies, similes, etc. It perhaps feels that way because this movie is a bit confusing. Much of, I would say, the fundamental lore of it is unclear. We don't know why Bill and Joe separated in the first place. We can perhaps assume a different argument in the rain had taken place. You just kind of have to buy into it all. You know, Bill and Joe, they don't get along because of their past history of not getting along. I just wish there was one line, some dumb line where PSH was like, oh, they've been like this since they were fighting over what to do with the grant money. Twisters 2024 really makes up for any lack of clarity experienced by the first film, despite balancing way more themes. I would say Twister 1996 is perhaps about 2 things, and Twisters 2024 is about at least a dozen things. When I say I nearly gasped aloud in the theater when it's revealed that the YouTubers were actually the good guys all along, the live streaming unkempt group is doing the good work while the all wearing the same outfit clipboard bros are the villains. Am I a part of the problem? I think it's just that usually when social media is incorporated in TV or film, it makes me want to claw my eyes out. We should abolish cell phone usage in film. What are they usually conveying? Nothing. Just the age we live in, but I don't really care to know that. Tell me Twisters 2024 took place in 1998. That is totally okay with me. The only film that's allowed to have cell phones in it is Bo Burnham's 8th Grade. I'm not taking further questions. Yeah, I was gonna be prejudiced against this group from the start. Twisters 2024 begins with a cohort of storm chasers led by our protagonist, Kate. They're storm chasers, but more importantly, they're pals. See, bear witness to how chummy they are. They're friends, they drink, and they chase tornadoes. They're scientists, but they fist bump on camera and sleep in cars. What an interesting take for the TCU. I thought we'd be opening with some tragic backstory. Oh no, wait, we are. We're in it as we speak. And it's way more tragic than you could ever imagine. Literally watching this woman's life destroyed in front of our eyes. Not to compare traumas, but like, at least Jo had her career after what happened to her father. Kate can't stay in the plains after this. She's gotta get out of here. She goes to the aesthetic opposite of Oklahoma, which is New York. She's traded wide open spaces for the rat race of the big city. She's dyed her hair so time has passed. She's gone corporate and she's not taking calls from home right now. Too sad. No. Way too sad to do that. Me looking back at my past. No, I can't. I can't look back at my tragic past. She's sad in the way Neville from Harry Potter was sad on the stairs that one time. The raindrops are meta-contextual. However, Javi, a member of the initial Chummy Chum friend group, is trying to recruit her back to Oklahoma for a new mission, deploying sensors that would allow them to obtain 3D scans of the tornadoes in a once-in-a-generation outbreak. See how I explain that succinctly in one sentence? Well, for some reason, Javi feels the need to get props. In the diner, he uses containers of butter as the scanners that go around the glass of water that he twirls with his finger to represent the tornado, but by the time he gets the whole thing set up, the tornado isn't even going anymore. And it's also like, I think Kate's a smart cookie. I don't think she needed a visual demonstration of what was going on here. I mean, we know that she knows what a tornado is. It's just a silly moment that, again, Twister and Twisters are tasked with in terms of dressing up what's going on here. We can forgive the movie for its sillier moments because shortly after we get this very thoughtful shot as we see Kate mulling the decision over, the ceiling fan increasingly looming, the tornado of the bedroom, and we don't need to be told what decision she makes. We can kind of tell, oh, she's got Twisters on the mind. She's got a whirling vortex of air in her headspace. Now back in Oklahoma, Kate is being introduced to the Storm Par team, Javi's company that collects the weather data. He emphasizes that they have PhDs from various prestigious institutions, which makes them foils to the more scrappy crew of social media icon Tyler Owens, played by Glenn Powell. Javi's partner Scott characterizes them as hillbillies with a YouTube channel. This group to them has bastardized the storm chasing world with their online following, overexcited fan base, and selling of associated merchandise. Not my first tornado? It's a tornado rodeo, so at one point Tyler's right-hand man asks Storm Par for a word, and Scott's like, don't engage. Do not engage. Which is honestly great advice for dealing with your rivals on the internet. You can take note here because this is the only time I will be giving Scott points for the entire video, because, oh my God, otherwise he is so annoying. All he does is not believe in Kate, continually doubt Kate, not give credit to Kate where Kate is due. But it's quickly revealed that Tyler isn't the dumb YouTube icon you might have thought he was. Oh no. He immediately clocks Kate and approaches her. They develop this rapport as two fellow tornado experts trying to juke the other one out. This tete-a-tete, playful banter, you could say, continues over the course of several occasions, several Twisters, all leading up to them having to face one on the ground together. Well, leading up to the halfway point in the movie, and look, Look, it's a pipe callback. Remember in the first film when they also held on to pipes? At the same time, we're getting glimmers of who Stormpar is actually collecting the data for. Housing developers who swoop in and buy the destroyed properties cheaply, taking advantage of people's tragedy. They're not helping the community. Kate and Javi get into a fight when she realizes this, and she argues that he doesn't understand what that kind of devastation is like for these people. And then Javi lays into her on their shared traumatic backstory, which all started because of Kate's tornado dissipation technology going terribly wrong. Kate leaves, and we see her finally return to her family home. There's a song playing in the background during this part that very aptly states, "You can't take the home out of Oklahoma." As if to say, as we're seeing her in her home for the first time, that this is her home. This is her home. And being back in this space clearly stirs up a lot of emotions in her. We come to understand more about the passion and ambition that was in her work growing up that just isn't there anymore. It's a moment of contemplation, and then guess who shows up at the front door? The tornado wrangler himself. Yeehaw! What is this, a fan fiction or something? Glenn Powell's come to console you in your time of need at your family home that he's never been to before and had to take extra steps to figure out where you were. Feels like this man is written by a woman on Wattpad. He also, of course, chums it up with Kate's mom, who over dinner explains to him how Kate's interest in the weather started at a very young age, namely one time when she jumped out of the bath and ran outside in order to watch a storm. What is it with the TCU and these naked in the rain stories?
Naked. But naked.
Naked. Not naked. Not naked.
I don't know. I'm not a storm chaser, so maybe I'm missing something, but both the films seem to have taken on this idea that, honey, you have not seen a storm until the storm has seen you. Tyler and Kate continue to grow closer. He helps her pick up the pieces of her original idea. There's this really, honestly endearing scene where the two of them are both getting excited over a tornado together, and it's like, oh, I mean, I don't get it, but I'm happy for them. It's nice to see Daisy Edgar-Jones play a character that experiences joy every now and then. Javi later stops by to apologize for what he said, and he's like, if there's anything I can do, let me know. And Kate's like, give me your data. I'll take you up on that offer right now. That might have just been a pleasantry, but I don't care. I want it. I want your data. Give me the proprietary Stormpar data. And he obliges. Scott seems pretty upset about it. You buzzkill, Scott. But now that she's got this data and has been able to fix her original model, Kate is ready to join forces with Tyler's crew in order to implement her updated tornado dissipation technology. And very conveniently for Kate, Tyler's infrastructure that was previously all used just to release fireworks for his online fans is the perfect way to release this mixture into the atmosphere. How convenient. Chekhov's firework truck. So they're going out trying to destroy a tornado while Stormpar is still determined to collect data. However, very inconveniently, the tornado they're both chasing catches fire at an oil refinery and explodes in size. Yeah, I would characterize that as a massive inconvenience. It starts to go towards town, so Kate and Tyler go to help the community. Javi, having a change of heart, also goes to help the community, leaving Stinky Scott out on the road, which is funny because, like, who knows what happens to him? We literally never see that character again. Now we're at the big boss final EF5 showdown. Despite the rising action, the rising stakes, the movie still leaves in some very thoughtful moments. We see the journalist who has been following Tyler around the whole time decide to leave his camera in the van, because sometimes gathering information hurts people more than it helps them. And while Tyler and Javi are helping everybody shelter in the movie theater, which honestly I can't get into right now. I have too much to say about this sequence, so we're gonna have to revisit it later. She realizes this thing is probably gonna be devastating and wants to do something about it, so she goes out by herself in the center of the storm to deploy her tornado-taming chemical mixture, her tornado-taming potion, and she conquers the beast. She saved the town. Huzzah! I love the blanket saving the town hero's journey that Twister's 2024 implements here. It is so comedically generic, but they do it so sincerely you can't be mad about it. But it's like, what? She saved the town? Sometimes it's a movie that feels like a play that a small town would put on about a Twister. And after one pretty crazy week, one gnarly adventure after the other, Kate's gotta head home to New York. But then her flight is delayed. Classic. Sign of the times, am I right? Giving Tyler a moment to decide that he does want to run after her and convince her to stay in Oklahoma, I guess? I don't know, there's a knowing glance shared. They don't kiss. The end. No kisses for you, okay, bye. And I'm sure you could sense the themes going to work here. Yes, some themes clocked into the office today. But you know me, I'm concerned with one thing. What does the tornado mean? What does the tornado represent? Why tornado at all? In our previous installment, you'll remember that the tornado overcoming our main characters represented divorce in 1996. Yes. The tornado in Twisters 2024, I believe, represents grief. The grief that our main character must overcome. So with this new lens, where to begin? Well, the beginning perhaps. Following an accident that she largely blames herself for, Kate leaves her life, her work, and her home in order to try to move on. But it's not that she's actually moving on, it's just that she's forcing everything that reminds her of said accident out of her life. And because these feelings of guilt and shame were never truly dealt with when she does return home and has to face the big bad thing that is at the epicenter of all this turmoil, she goes into fight or flight, and she flights. Oh, she flights hard. But slowly, through the support of the people around her, she starts to operate less on the basis of fear and the basis of survival. She starts to acclimate a bit, but she still hasn't fundamentally addressed how she's feeling at the center. She goes back to the place where her emotions regarding the accident would be the most raw and is reminded of the life she used to be living before it. How she was kind of a different person, and the work she was doing was because she was passionate, yes, but also there was a greater cause there that she was hoping to serve. She was hoping to make life safer for the people around her. She was trying to, say it with me now, help the community. And so long as she doesn't overcome this grief, she's keeping her unique skill set and talents from the world, where they would otherwise be very useful. She recontextualizes her grief as not something that's just holding her back, but holding everybody around her back. So there's nothing to be done but face it, and she must face it alone. She goes to the heart of all her guilt and shame and does nothing. She's relinquishing control over her grief, and only when she does that, letting it wash over her, can she really overcome it. Overcome it, and perhaps accept the big bad thing that is eventually coming for us all. Yeah, my reading of the tornado in this one is also a bit Grim Reaper-esque, but some death is tragic and nonsensical and preventable, and without Kate's expertise, an entire community would have been devastated by this twister. Also, the visual we get of Kate being reborn from the body of a pickup truck, now that's an Oklahoma girl if I've ever seen one. But Twisters 2024 does not leave the metaphor at that. Remember that sheltering in the movie theater sequence that I said I would get back to? Well, that was all very heavily inspired by this image, and I can see why. I mean, sometimes we see the stories and we see the tragedies play out on screen, but sometimes we are in them. There's a story within the story, things always nesting into other things, and this idea comes up a lot throughout the movie. The journalist traveling with Tyler's team trying to find his story on American storm chasing, and that story ends up being about Kate. Kate is made the story within the film and of the film itself as we are watching it. Frankenstein playing on the screen while everybody's waiting out the storm in the theater, a parallel between the monsters on screen and the monsters the characters are facing in their lives. They're watching the horror film Frankenstein as they are experiencing the horror themselves, and then we are watching the film Twisters and the film Frankenstein within the film Twisters, which is all heavily inspired by a real-life horror that people will continually face. There's also the added element of this entire final sequence being about saving the theater. We are literally trying to save a theater, guys. And then Lee Isaac Chung, the director, saying his main goal with Twisters 2024 was it being a summer blockbuster, wanting to get people to the theater, wanting to save theaters. People say they hate remakes, but sometimes it is the 30-year-old piece of storytelling that you must hold on to in times of survival. We may have not wanted Twisters 2024 in 2024, but we may have needed it.
This theater isn't built to withstand what's coming!
The characters are holding onto their seat while the Twisters filmmakers are hoping you're holding onto your seat watching Twisters. I had fun seeing it in theaters. I had a good time. Yeah, sometimes the audience sense of humor didn't align with mine, but that's okay. There's this one scene where Javi and Kate are driving backwards away from a tornado and they go through a chicken coop, and in the silent aftermath, a chicken lands on his car and the crowd went wild. Everyone in my theater loved that chicken. And it was like the film knew that that would kill. They gave it a hold for applause moment, like the chicken was Andrew Garfield in No Way Home or something.
Okay.
Who the hell are you? Even the metaphors I'm searching for here are stories within the actual stories of these movies. I mean, what is interpreting movies at all but looking for the story that aligns the most with your life story, things you've experienced story, the meta story, or why even interpret? You could just watch these movies for the excitement, the cow, the chicken, Glenn Powell. I wouldn't blame you for that at all. So for Twisters 3, I'm thinking they could just call it Twisters 3. Or they could wait for Twisters 2049, Twista, a Boston-based storm, Twicked, The Wizard of Oz crossover event? Twisted. Twisting. Twistered. Twister interrupted. E.T. the extra twister.